Today I make a case on why this is the best sniper build in the Division 2. Hold on to your socks, banditos. We're going deep down the rabbit hole on this one.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Let's look at the details of this build. And it's a very unusual setup. Yes, that's the Ninja Bike backpack, which is giving us resourceful. I have headshot damage on it, and we got 3 cores. So on this build, we get a blue core and a skill tier, which is a nice thing to have, I gotta tell you. And then resourceful is gonna open up additional brand and gear set bonuses on the build. So usually when we run the Ninja Bike backpack, it's not about damage, it's about utility. And this build brings a ton of it. What utility did I decide to go for on this build? Well, it's all in the stats. We're running 256% headshot damage. That's enough to chain kill elites in heroic content and of course in legendary. But it's the weapon handling. 115% weapon handling on this build is absolutely insane. So for the mask, I'm running a Habsburg, which is actually a 2-piece because of the Ninja backpack. I got a red core here and then weapon handling and headshot damage. For the holster, I'm running Hot Shot, which gives us marksman rifle and weapon handling. And then, you guessed it, weapon damage and weapon handling. For the knees, I'm running Overlord. We have unlocked all 3 bonuses for Overlord, and I have damage to targets out of cover and weapon handling. The gloves are the Contractors, giving us 15% weapon handling, damage to armor, and more weapon handling. And the final piece is the Overlord chest piece. We have headshot damage and weapon handling, and Headhunter is what gives us our chain killing capabilities. Lots of words here, but basically, you got 1,250% headshot damage based off of the last headshot killing blow, and you need 150% headshot damage to do that, which with snipers is really easy to do. So we have 256%. I run the decoy and the fixer. Now this build is not reliant on the model 700 that you can see that I'm wearing here, but you can see that it's got a really healthy damage on it. I got 1.5 million right out of the bat. I do have 15% expertise on mine. You do not need expertise for this build to work. I'll repeat, you do not need expertise for this build to work. Okay, that being said, I have damage to targets out of cover. I've got 111% headshot damage. Snipers bring that to the table, and that's a big deal. And as you can see, I got 2.9 second reload, which is quite impressive. And then I'm running Determined as my talent. So after killing an enemy with a headshot, the next shot landed on any enemy will be a guaranteed headshot. So this requires a headshot kill with the weapon in hand in order to activate Determined. You could use basically any sniper, the Covert SRS, the M700 Carbon, the SR1, which I know a lot of people are liking. Now for the secondary weapon, I have the Nemesis here, but this is just for demonstration purposes. I like running the Sweet Dreams with this, so every now and again, you could just swipe somebody out of your way, like an annoying rusher or whatever. But go with whatever, St. Elmo's, the Scorpio, because this isn't running an exotic as a primary, it really opens up endless possibilities for you. And then for the pistol, I'm running the D50, also with Determined. It's just a really good one in case you're running directives and you need to get some ammo real quick. Something strong like that will work. There's no secret that in the Division 2, sniping is not that easy or not very forgiving because of the NPC behavior. But there's some programming in them where they can detect sort of like a sixth sense on whether you're scoped in on them, even if they're not looking at you. And so they start acting sporadic, or they'll pop and cover, never come out, or they will start doing clown cartwheels in the middle of the field. All quite ridiculous. One of the most frustrating things about sniping in the Division 2 is actually the headshot hitbox. Obviously quite small in just about any game that you play, really, but there's a few problems with it. For one, when the enemy is looking down scope, their hand and weapon are in front of their face, decreasing that hitbox even further. Even if you hit their hand, which is directly in front of their face, in reality, we know that the bullet would penetrate the hand and go through their skull. But in this game, the hit mechanics don't care, and so it's gonna count that as a body shot. And that happens a lot. And with chain killer, it's sensitive. So if you land a shot on the body, it will break your chain killing. And then you have to restart your chain killing stacks, which are quite important for a sniper, all over again. The second thing is because the enemy AI is so darn bullet spongy, the body flinch mechanic sort of gets ridiculous. If you don't know what body flinching is, it's basically an animation that happens when you're hit by bullets. It's sort of a reflex. It causes head jiggling and body wiggling. It happens to you and it happens to the AI. As a sniper, you don't like flinch because in this game especially, it makes it nearly impossible to land your shot. Sometimes you can be standing right in front of an enemy, point blank, barrel against their chest, and because you're taking damage, the game is gonna force a miss on you because of body flinch. It's very punishing. But for the enemy, again, because they're so bullet spongy, they can take dozens or even hundreds of rounds from the NPC allies, for example, or whatever. And so they're just flinching all over the place, and that can make it really difficult to land a shot on the head. So their body flinch ridiculousness is actually an artifact of them being very bullet spongy. And for all those reasons above, I think it's really important that the weapon talent determined exists, because we don't have any countermeasures to these AI mechanics. Other games have things to mitigate that, and in many other games, enemies aren't that spongy as the Division 2. Let's take a look at something really important to sniping in this game. And if you take your sniping seriously, this is something you do not want to overlook. Your damage numbers. You need to know these. For other weapon classes, it's not super important unless you're trying to headshot kill, so like rifles, shotguns, and pistols. But for sniping, it's extremely important. The figure that you most want to focus on really is the elite heroic. And that's because in the end game, we spend a lot of time in the open world playing heroic content. When you're playing heroic missions, elites aren't even really a factor because there's so many normals and veterans, it's extremely easy. But still, heroic elites do exist in missions, and so you're gonna wanna know that. And then from there, you wanna know your legendary figures, and then of course, scaling. Let's just start with heroic solo gameplay. To eliminate an elite, you need, let's just call it 9.8 million. And with sniper builds, what most of us are trying to accomplish is to get to one-shot chain killing capabilities right away. I'll tell you right now, there's not that many builds or weapons that can do that, but it's possible. However, you're gonna be making concessions to do it. I'll say generally, for the most part, determined is not part of that equation. So if you want to step into the game and one-shot an elite in heroic content, you're gonna want a damage talent on your chest, your backpack, and your primary weapon. So for example, the Nemesis is the strongest sniper in the game. It's an exotic, of course. It gives you crazy damage, right? And so if we charge it up, this is a heroic elite, we got that one-shot kill right out of the gate. And everything after that, we're not worried about as long as we land it on the head, because chain killer is gonna take over, and so we get crazy damage from here. But if you look at these figures, the damage that we're achieving is way higher than any damage we possibly need, even in a 4-man legendary setup. Let me switch to my other weapon. So the Model 700 is the strongest non-exotic sniper in the game. And so the only thing stronger than it is the Nemesis, and of course Attack 50, which isn't really classified as a sniper. It's technically a specialization weapon in this game. If we take a shot with this one, my first shot doesn't get the kill on this build. And then the second shot does. And from that point forward, Headhunter takes over and we achieve great numbers. Okay, so let me change the build. This is a build I put together. It's basically one of the very strongest sniper builds in the game. There's a few variations of this, but they all have the same components, which is Headhunter and Vigilance, and then a damage talent on your primary weapon, which I'm gonna put on in a minute. First, I wanna demonstrate without it. As I said earlier, when you have Determined on your primary weapon, you're not gonna be able to get that one shot on elites, even on the strongest sniper build in the game. You need a damage talent. So this is bringing in the Sawyer's knee pads, which by the way, gives us 30% increased total weapon damage, which is a lot of damage, okay? So our Sawyer's knee pads are stacked. Let's take our first shot with Determined. And as you can see, I can't one-shot kill that elite, but boy, are we close. And remember, that's with expertise 15. Now I'm gonna try to get a crit to show you if I happen to crit, then I happen to nail it. But I don't recommend relying on crits with a headshot sniper build because every shot counts. And the first shot is the most important. And on a max crit build, which is 60%, you got a 40% chance that's not going to be a crit, which is huge on a sniper. So it's possible you can get this to work, maybe load on some more expertise. But my point is that I had to make concessions, which isn't a huge deal. But if you lose your headshot buff, then you have to nail that headshot again, which is going to require you to stand still for 10 seconds before you can take that shot. In that time, you could have just unloaded 2 shots and got your kill and be done with it. Get it? And then with the Nemesis, of course, just like on the other build, it's going to nail it because it's just the strongest sniper. So everything that I've explained was the long and detailed route to this single point. With a sniper build in the Division 2, you're either one-shot chain killing or you're not. And so I'm gonna take off Determined and put on the Behind You talent. Now I'm gonna take that shot. Let's see what we can do. So without a crit, we killed our elite with a single bullet. And that's using the strongest sniper build in the game. The downside is from this point forward, I have to land all my shots on the head in order to get my maximum stack, but they get big. The reality is after that first shot, behind you is most likely not gonna be very active because you've now been spotted and you're now being targeted, and behind you is only active when they're not targeting you, which sometimes still happens. But as soon as I land a body shot, I lose my chain killing. I still have to start all over. But since we have the damage on the build, it's not that big of a deal. Just land one on the head, but it's not determined. And so you're gonna break your chain killing capabilities often for all the reasons I explained earlier in this video. So even though this is an amazing build, and it's a great build, especially if you're a purist with your sniping, we just all know that determined is really hard to beat. And it doesn't mean I always use determined. There's many times that I don't. Okay, so going back to our build. So let's take a closer look at that first shot. So do you see that one little tiny bar on his head? That's the difference between running determined or running behind you. So now I have behind you on my weapon. Let's take that shot again. So it took off a little bit of health, but as you can see, that one little white bar is not there anymore. So how many shots does it take to kill a heroic elite with the behind you talent? 1, 2. And then what's our second shot kill damage? 17 million. So let's pop up our damage chart. What does 17 million buy us? That buys us a legendary solo elite. Okay, let's take our third shot. 26 million. So what does that buy us? That buys us a heroic named elite. So we're now killing bosses and above. And that's right there for the elite 4-man scaling and legendary as well. So you're one-shot chain killing elites. And remember, when you're running with a team, there's usually team buffs as a factor as well. And the reality is that there's not that many elites in legendary content, but that does depend on which legendary stronghold you're taking on. So the build I'm recommending is with determined. So how many shots does it take to kill an elite? 1, 2. So how many shots did it take with behind you? 2. How many shots did it take with determined? 2. And now we're chain killing, but now we can do it on the body. So there's 25 million right there. So it's basically on par with the behind you setup, but a little bit shy. But there's enough room on this build where you could adjust for that if you really wanted to, but I don't really see the point. That's enough to kill a fully scaled up legendary elite with a 4-man group. Remember, you're gonna have team buffs as well. So we are one-shot chain killing elites on the body. It's amazing. At 25 million, that's crazy. So you're either one-shot chain killing or you're not. Okay, let's take this to named boss here. One shot, he's dead. Okay, you ready for your mind to be blown? A lot of people don't realize that weapon handling actually helps snipers more than you would think. So weapon handling gives us stability, it gives us accuracy, reload speed, and weapon swap speed. So we're using 2 things from the stability. And one is the recoil. So by controlling our recoil, we can throw out a second shot faster and have a better chance of that shot being on target. That's because the recoil isn't getting to throw the barrel as high. It's usually vertical. Thus, there's less recovery required. But the other thing that stability gives us is a decreased weapon sway. My weapon is absolutely still on this build. Look at that. It's actually moving, but it's really hard to tell, right? But on a moving target, like in game and at distance, that weapon sway can cause a miss. So the Nemesis is notorious for having a really high weapon sway. So you can notice its weapon sway a little bit more, but that's impressive. Okay, so let me swap to the other build, the strongest sniper one. Okay, so look at the Nemesis now. A lot greater, right? Model 700, not as bad. And this build does have weapon handling. Sharpshooter gives you weapon handling as well. Okay, back to our primary build. And then of course there's the reload speed, and I'm using the Model 7. You don't have to use this weapon again, and I'll showcase that, but the reloads are crazy fast. So look at the weapon swap. I mean, those are crazy hands. I mean, even to the specialization weapon. I don't have any ammo in it, but that's a big deal. And so if the SR1 is your favorite sniper, this build is still strong enough to 2-shot your first elite and then chain kill from there. 1-shot the elite, 2 shots the elite. And now we're chain killing on the body. So the build is strong enough to carry most snipers, and they're all gonna perform very similar. We got a lot of weapon handling on here, but here's the crazy thing. If I took off this weapon handling and put back on headshot damage, it doesn't change the way the build performs. Again, you're either one-shot killing an elite right out of the gate with no stacks, or you're two-shotting him or more. So on this build, if I took all these pieces and moved them to headshot damage, I'm still two-shotting that first elite and then chain killing from there. So adding 30% headshot damage doesn't change a thing. Basically, the build doesn't change until you sacrifice everything and go all the way up to the strongest sniper build in the game. And then you're one-shot chain killing elites, but it's a completely different build and you're not running determined. So you've made a lot of concessions. Yes, with this build, you can use your TAC 50 and your Nemesis to kick off the fight and then switch over to your Model 700 or your SR1, but you don't need to. You just stick with the same weapon and put out 2 shots on that guy and you're off to the races and you're killing everybody. So if I started with the Nemesis, it's the same thing. I'm just exchanging a tactical reload for a weapon swap. There is diminished returns on this build. I don't need as much weapon handling as I have, but I don't need headshot damage either because it's not changing the build's performance if I added more headshot damage. And there might be some minor scenarios where it will, maybe like you're running in a 3-man group and you might just be shy of one-shot chain killing a veteran or something like that. So tweak the build based on what type of content you play. So if you want a buffer on your headshot damage, yeah, then put on the 30% headshot damage. That's cool. If you want to take off some weapon handling, put on some armor on kill, which is a great idea, by the way, then you can do that as well. And what does that do for the build? Well, let's take a look. So a fresh start, 1 shot, 2 shots, and then we're chain killing. And what's our peak damage? 24 million. And where does that put us on the weapon handling scale? We're at 100% weapon handling, which is still crazy high, but now we got 1% armor regen and 10% armor on kill, which is gonna help. I know there's a lot of information here. Hopefully you learned something today and you give this build a try. It's amazing. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido, and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.